Former Guns N' Roses drummer Matt Sorum probably put it best when he tweeted out, "I thought Billie Joe Armstrong's Rant was the most punk rock thing he's ever done." Then he had to go and ruin it by apologizing. Corporate rock is alive and well. Never really bought that band anyways, he would conclude. And it was a funny statement considering it was Green Day who inducted Matt Sorum into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Guns N' Roses just 5 months prior in April of 2012. Drinking and shenanigans seem to be part of Green Day's image. From their humble beginnings from California, they appeared to be just three punk rock kids who wanted to make great music with the help of a little lubricants. In fact, even after the band got famous, the band's singer Billie Joe Armstrong admitted to Rolling Stone in 2013 that he had anxiety getting on stage in front of people and would reveal alcohol would help alleviate some of the nerves, admitting, "I played on stage loaded a lot. I'd have anywhere from 2 to 6 beers and a couple of shots before I went on stage. Then I'd go out and play the gig and drink for the rest of the evening on the bus, fall asleep, wake up the next day, feel like crap, do soundcheck. It was over and over again. In that way, I was a functioning alcoholic." Now, Green Day is a very polarizing band on my channel, just like several other bands I've covered in the past, including Dave Matthews Band, Garbage, Foo Fighters, and Linkin Park. And I'm not afraid to admit that I like Green Day. Now granted, I'm a fan of their earlier work prior to them getting signed to a major label, and of course I was a big fan of Dookie in 1994, and 2004's American Idiot I was also a fan of. I even checked out their musical American Idiot a couple of years ago and absolutely loved it, but I've always felt like for the last 10 years, and for the 10 years prior to that, Green Day was always living in the shadow of Dookie, and then they were also living in the shadow of American Idiot. And 2009 would see the release of 21st Century Breakdown, which I felt was a mediocre record. I still remember living up north at the time and hearing Know Your Enemy and 21 Guns played over and over again on Sirius XM Hits 1. 3 years later, the band was set to do something a lot of bands don't do. While double albums get released every now and then by certain bands who are really ambitious, record labels aren't a fan of the move because it results in the records costing more than their competition and therefore hurts their bottom line. Now, Green Day did something completely different. They had recorded so much material by the summer of 2012, they put out 3 individual albums called Uno, Dos, and Tre, whose release dates would be roughly a month apart in the later part of 2012, and each record would feature a different member on the cover. Now, personally, I've always liked Uno and Tre the best. Dos, I could take it or leave it. But prior to the first of the 3 albums coming out, which was Uno, the band was out promoting the crap out of the record. They were showing up on venues that traditionally rock bands wouldn't go on, including America's Got Talent and The Voice. And I don't really watch these shows, and Howard Stern being on America's Got Talent wasn't enough for me to tune into that awful show. Now, for those of you who don't know, iHeart Radio used to be called Clear Channel. Yes, Howard Stern's former bosses when he was on terrestrial radio. Now, after Stern left, the failing company had tried to rebrand itself with little luck. And since 2010, they'd been holding the annual iHeart Radio Music Festival, which brings together artists from various genres, or so it's marketed. But in reality, it's more heavily leaning towards pop music. Now, Green Day had their Uno album coming out in September of 2012, and about a week before the record dropped, they played the festival, and they were joined by a pretty eclectic lineup including Usher, Psy, if you guys remember Gangnam Style, and Lil Wayne. Now, by this point in their career, Green Day were workhorses. They had been working nonstop since 2009, putting out records, doing a musical, touring, and of course that type of lifestyle will eventually catch up with you, especially as you get older. Now, at the same time, many people who find themselves in this situation are too attracted to the money to stop. And in Billie Joe Armstrong's case, he was now part of the 1% that was so vilified at the beginning of the 2010s. Now, that's not to say that money was his motivation. He's a musician after all, and if he's anything like me, I go stir crazy sitting for too long at home and doing nothing. According to one estimate, Billie Joe Armstrong was the 42nd richest singer in rock and roll with a net worth of more than $55 million, making him wealthier than fellow rock legends like Vince Neil and David Lee Roth. Armstrong would tell Rolling Stone in 2013 that as the Occupy Wall Street movement was starting, he'd say, "I feel like a 99, but technically I'm a 1%er. I know that's where I come from, the 99, even though I can afford for my kids to go to a good college." Now, the Occupy Wall Street movement would even inspire the song 99 Revolutions, which would end up on the Tre album. and in my opinion it's one of the better songs off the 3 records. On September 21st, the band would be playing a set at the iHeart Radio Music Festival, which would only be about 25 minutes in length, which was much shorter than a typical Green Day show. Now, when you watch the performance, you can tell the crowd wasn't really into Green Day and they were there to see the pop acts. And even before Billie Joe's epic rant, you can see him try to excite the audience by getting them to sing along and stand up, but they're not really having any of it, as you can see in this clip.
Get a job, but she don't like that one she's got. Go!
Prior to the band's performance of their huge 1994 single Basket Case from their record Dookie, the band was notified they only had 4 minutes before they had to leave the stage. Armstrong would start his rant and then proceeded to start the song. But it wasn't until the band was partway through the song that they were notified they only had 1 minute left that Armstrong completely lost it. Here's the clip.
Yeah, I'll bring your fucking usher back up here, goddammit. If you have fucking minute per fucking song. I've been around for fucking 25 years, Las Vegas. I got at least 1 minute per fucking song, I'll tell you that right now. I'll tell you one thing, I'll say Julio Cesar Chavez has got 1 fucking minute to knock out fucking some motherfucker from fucking Argentina, I'll tell you that. Yes. You gotta be fucking joking. This is a fucking joke. I got 1 minute left. Oh, now I got nothing left. Now I got nothing left. Let me show you what fucking minute fucking means. One minute. God fucking love you all. We'll be back.
Now, of course, the clip would go viral, but nobody outside of the band's tight-knit circle knew whether the clip was a punk rock statement or something more serious. Now, shortly after the performance, Green Day announced that Armstrong was going to a month-long outpatient rehab program for, as the band put it, treatment for substance abuse. They'd go on to say, "We would like everyone to know that our set was not cut short and to apologize to those we offended at the iHeart Radio Music Festival. We regretfully must postpone some of our upcoming promotional appearances." The band had booked a tour to support their upcoming records following the iHeart appearance, but the incident canceled those dates and killed any kind of promotion for their subsequent 2 records, Dose and Trey, which ended up selling pretty poorly compared to the band's previous works. And almost 7 months after the incident, Armstrong and his bandmates were ready to hit the road again and to promote the shows. They sat down with Rolling Stone magazine to discuss what had went on at the iHeart Radio Music Festival. Now, during the interview, Armstrong would tie a lot of the problems back to 2009 when the band started to promote 21st Century Breakdown, stating, "There were meltdowns on that tour that were huge. At a 2010 show in Peru during an anti-technology rant, Armstrong would shout, 'I can't wait for Steve Jobs to die of effing cancer.' And Jobs would end up dying a year later." Now, Armstrong would say it was a really stupid thing. A lot of that stuff was just going on. And Armstrong would also reveal to Rolling Stone that in the summer of 2012, it was a really mixed time for him, saying that on one hand he was happy and had one of the best times making the 3 records, but following the mixing of the albums, he was hit with tragedy when his aunt would pass away. He would claim, "That hit me pretty hard. Then I started getting overwhelmed. We were doing press every day. There was the tour. We were thinking of another tour after that, and then another tour after that. I was overbooked and exhausted, and I thought, my God, I feel like this, and the first record hasn't even come out yet." Now, I don't know about you guys, but I can relate to this level of stress and anxiety. It kind of feels like you can't do it, and it becomes overwhelming. And it's just a nasty cycle that just repeats itself and affects everything in your life, from sleeping to eating to just basically functioning. In the same interview, Armstrong would go on to reveal that he was taking sleeping and anti-anxiety drugs, revealing he didn't know what he was taking during the day and what he was taking at night, and would claim that his backpack sounded like a giant baby rattle. On top of that, Armstrong was also drinking to the point where he would, as he put it, wake up in a strange house on a couch, I wouldn't remember how. It was a complete blackout. Now, what's ironic about this whole thing is that 1 week prior to the iHeart radio gig, Armstrong would reveal that the band's manager knew that the singer needed to get help, as he recalled how the band was on tour in Europe and Japan. Armstrong would reveal, "It's funny because there was an incident in England. We were playing some shows in Europe. I was at my pill-taking height at that time, medicating the crap out of myself because I couldn't sleep. We went to Japan, we went to England, we were zigzagging everywhere. And one night I called a friend of mine who was at the hotel room next door. I said, 'Come on over, have some coffee.' It's 7 a.m. and I'm like, 'I just took all this stuff, I can't sleep.' It was all normal talk, like how we're talking now. Afterwards, I'm sitting in my room and I got a text from my manager saying, 'Come on down, we have to talk about the Reading Festival.' I went down there, he was sitting there and he goes, 'We're getting on a plane, we're canceling the rest of this tour and you're going into rehab.' I was like, 'What? What are you talking about? I'm not going to do that.' We talked about it later. We got to this theater gig we were playing in London. I said, 'I don't want to cancel these gigs. It just can't happen.' Tell you what, as soon as we get home, when we're done with the press and this stuff after iHeart Radio, the week following I'll go into rehab, but I can't cancel any of this stuff now." It turned out I was a week ahead of schedule, Armstrong would say. During the same interview, Armstrong would reveal what his stint in rehab was like, saying he had some contact with his bandmates as well as his wife. The band's bassist, Mike Dirnt, would reveal that he would be writing letters to both Billie Joe Armstrong's wife and Billie Joe, saying, "I wrote them and Adrian a few letters explaining how I felt, how I was concerned and proud of him." And Armstrong would end up running into Dirnt at a coffee shop unexpectedly in Oakland, with Dirnt recalling, "Billy apologized to me from the bottom of his heart. It was just two old friends on a park bench. I hope to be on a park bench with him when I'm old, feeding birds and having conversations." And Armstrong would characterize his regimen in rehab as meditation through prayer, combined with meetings and common sense about limits, saying, "We're going into this tour and making sure we do everything we can where everybody feels healthy, safe, and happy." And in regards to Green Day fans, Armstrong would feel even more remorse, saying, "I let them down. The things in Vegas, some people love it, some people hate it. I know I'm never going to relive that. That's a side of me I don't want my fans to ever see again. I want to put on good shows, I want to be reliable, and we plan on being reliable." Now, Armstrong would say that while he appeared high-functioning on the outside, that wasn't the reality of his life, saying, "The other part of my life was falling apart slowly. My foundation was cracked. Honestly, I don't know if I would be around if I hadn't gone to rehab." Green Day would end up hitting the road in 2013, playing the European festival circuit and numerous US dates. And for the past 5 years, they seem to have put that incident behind them and have since released 2 records, including 2016's Revolution Radio and their upcoming record, Father of All, which, well, comes out today. If you guys love Green Day, then check out my look at the band's historic 1994 album, Dookie, on the screen now. And as always, guys, if you have suggestions for topics you'd like to see me cover, be sure to reply to the pinned comment down below. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Take care.